From Seattle, this is the Budweiser Emerald Cup, brought to you by Champion, makers of Copper Plus, America's best spark plug.
It is an absolutely gorgeous afternoon here in Seattle with better than 200,000 fans either sitting on the shores of Lake Washington or out in one of the several hundred yachts on the log boom which runs down the back straightaway on the east side of this 2-mile course. Hi everybody, I'm Don Poyer along with Jim Kropfeld of the Miss Budweiser, the current national points leader, but that lead is getting slimmer and slimmer all the time, James.
It sure is, Don. With the problem that we had in Pasco not starting that final heat, Chip grabbed an extra 400 points right there by winning, and 400 points in one heat with a 500-point lead on the Budweiser's part, that's a very close race.
Very briefly, hazardous conditions at times out here. You get parallel rollers down the back straightaway.
It's a funny course. It's completely different than any course we run, and the water conditions, they're never the same or typical in any two parts of the race course, and it's a driver's course that takes a lot of concentration.
Well, the man that's chasing Jim is Chip Hanauer, as Jim referred to, of the Miller American. Jim Hendrick is with him right now.
All right, Don. What about that lead, Chip?
Well, it's still a substantial lead, 530 points, but it's doable now. It's possible. After Miami, the first race of the year, and we didn't start a single heat and being 1,200 points in the hole, I didn't think it'd ever be doable.
This is your hometown race. You know this course pretty good. What about the rough spots?
It's just one big rough spot, I'd say. It's just, what happens is there's got to be 5,000 pleasure boats out there, and they move around all day, and so it's an artificial roughness. It's going a million different directions, and it's rough everywhere on the race course.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, now let's check the combatants in Heat 1A. Jack Schaefer at 105.8 in qualifying will drive the Tempest. Cellular 1 with Todd Yarling at 110.9. Whole set Miss Madison, Ron Snyder, the driver, at 112.4. Miss 711 Turbine, Steve Reynolds at the wheel, checked in at 125.4. Mr. Pringles, Scott Pierce at 127.4. And the Miss Budweiser Turbine with Jim Kropfeld, second highest qualifier at 135.6. And that's the way they line up for Heat 1A. And now, Don Poyer, what about 1B?
Jim, we've got an 11-boat field, just like we did last week in Tri-Cities. Here's the rundown for Heat 1B with 5 boats. First of all, the Oh Boy Oberto with Seattle native George Johnson qualifying at 106.58. Next is the Frank Kenny Unlimited with Milner Irvin out of Florida, 116.26 miles per hour. Coming up next, the AA Auto Supply with Mike Hansen, 118.22 miles per hour. The Z Squire Shop, Tom DeEath aboard in his last race, so he says anyway, qualifying at 127.52. And finally, the Miller American with Chip Hanauer out of Seattle, qualifying at number 1, 140.51 miles per hour. On every racing circuit, there is always at least 1 or 2 very special races during the year. And this is one of them. We're in Seattle, Heat 1A, coming up in just a minute. Back to Seattle on the Budweiser Emerald Cup. Heat 1A coming up. I'm Don Poyer along with Jim Hendrick. This is the Mr. Pringles going in. Scotty Pierce, the driver, making sure that his stopwatch is started on time.
Punch it, reset it again.
Hey, they're having the crew do it. Jim Kropfeld, the Budweiser driver, heading out. Tim Ramsey, Steve Olson, crew members there helping him. Looks like the 7-Eleven a little behind schedule. Hope they can make Heat 1A in time. And this is the Cellular 1, Todd Yarling out of Hanover, Indiana. He'll be driving this rig, their second year out in Seattle. Still a lot of hurrying going on the 7-Eleven camp. This is Don Parkin. They call him Pinky, one of the crew members. Steve Reynolds seems to be ready to go, though, the driver of the 7-Eleven. And hopefully they will have that boat out there and ready in time. Yes, they do. As you see the Budweiser go out, the 7-Eleven up on the sling, and we should have all 6 boats ready to go. Look at this. Even the Budweiser crew members are out helping. the 7-Eleven crew get this boat out in time. Nice sportsmanship on the part of the Budweiser team. Steve Reynolds, of course, a hometown man, grew up on the island in the background of this picture, Mercer Island in Seattle. So he's been around the hydroplanes for many, many years. And this race, as it is for many of the Seattle drivers, awfully special. They want to win in front of their hometown fans. So Steve Reynolds looking for his first victory in 1986. We'll try again here in Seattle for Steve Woomer's 7-Eleven team. Out goes the 7-Eleven. Protective carpet out of the way, and we're ready to go racing. And here are the drivers for Heat 1A. Jack Schaefer driving Chuck Ickling's Tempest, a tunnel boat. Todd Yarling out of Hanover, Indiana, as I said, driving the Sailor 1, his second trip to Seattle. Ron Snyder, popular driver, driving the Hulset Miss Madison, a conventional style boat. Steve Reynolds out of Seattle and the turbine-powered Miss 7-Eleven. Also Scotty Pierce, also out of Seattle, in the Mr. Pringles, its second race as a sponsor. Finally, Jim Cropfeld, national point leader aboard the Miss Budweiser. All 6 boats are running for Heat 1A. Oh, this is something special, racing in front of Seattle fans. And here's the start. You heard the gun. The starting boat's right on the button. The Budweiser in lane number 2. And Ron Snyder in the Hulset Miss Madison in lane number 1 on the right of your screen. This is a 2-mile course. Already, you can see how the boats are bouncing up and down the Budweiser. There's Bernie Little and his wife, Jane, watching from a scissor lift, a tower. He can watch the race from the pits. The Budweiser in lane number 1 and in first place, going down the back chute. Moving into second place is the 7-Eleven. In third, Ron Snyder out of Piqua, Ohio. Here's the Budweiser and Jim Cropfeld. He talked about how rough it's getting out there, and you can get some idea of the ride that he's going through. This is the Budweiser coming down the main straightaway, and look who's moving up. The 7-Eleven on the inside, pulling on the Budweiser. Cropfeld in first, 7-Eleven in second. There's a great shot coming down the main chute with the Budweiser still holding on to first place. We'll get a speed for Cropfeld in just a moment, but the Budweiser holding on to first. Fighting off 7-Eleven, Steve Reynolds, a good friend of Jim Cropfeld, and they are 1 and 2 after lap number 1. Speed for the Budweiser, 116 miles per hour, 113 for the 7-Eleven. Look out, Ron Snyder, they've lost an engine in the Hulset Miss Madison. He's done for this heat. Moving into third place now is the Mr. Pringles with Scotty Pierce. There's the second place boat, Steve Reynolds. Here's third place, Mr. Pringles with Scotty Pierce. In second and third, you have Seattle drivers. In first place, a Cincinnati driver, that being Jim Cropfeld, and the turbine-powered Miss Budweiser way up on the right sponson. It is getting very treacherous up in the north turn. It was last year when the 7-Eleven almost lost its right sponson, and now the Budweiser taking a beating. Second place is Steve Reynolds in the 7-Eleven, trying to get more power out of that Lycoming engine. They've been doing a lot of work on the boat, getting it running much faster. The Pringles boat, very reliable, a good driver in Scotty Pierce out of Seattle. He is in third place. Budweiser in second place. The speed much higher for the Bud after lap number 2, 124.61 miles per hour. So he is not waiting for anybody to try to even catch up with him. The 7-Eleven has dropped back, as you can see on our perspective shot, along the log boom. Thousands of yachts down there on the back straightaway, about maybe 500 yards away from the actual course. But still, the waves bounce off of those boats and come right into the main straightaway in the back and the front straightaway as well. Back in fourth place is the Sailor 1 and Todd Yarling, who made the final here last year when the Gold Cup was held in Seattle. A great performance, and they hope to do the same here. Back to the Budweiser, back into that tough corner. You can see the tail wave back and forth. An incredible beating this boat is taking as they go around the north turn. The Budweiser really putting it down, and likewise for the 7-Eleven. Speed for the Budweiser. And wait a minute, the 7-Eleven is slowing down. Something's gone wrong with the 7-Eleven. Steve Woomer, the owner of the boat, the man in the sunglasses, he can't believe it. Now the Budweiser still bouncing along. Speed for the Bud, 126.9. That is a new 2-mile course record in a competitive lap for Seattle. This is a 2-mile course, used to be 2.5 miles. Now it's 2, and moving into second was the Mr. Pringles. Into third, the Sailor 1 and Todd Yarling. That would give him valuable points and trying to get into that final. Back to the Budweiser. You saw the 7-Eleven in the foreground. Again, Cropfeld trying to negotiate through this tough north turn. Doesn't seem to be quite as bad in the south turn, but the Budweiser and the checkered flag awaiting him as he comes down for 400 points. The Budweiser and Cropfeld, he's in good shape to get into the final. Second place will go to Scotty Pierce and the Mr. Pringles. 300 points. That should put them in really quite good shape as well for the final. One more preliminary to go. And here's the Sailor 1, 225 points. Third place to Todd Yarling. Looking at the results of 1A, the Budweiser not only set a lap speed record, competitive lap, but also a heat speed record of 117.7 miles per hour on this 2-mile course. Down to the Budweiser camp with Jim Hendrick.
Jim, you had to notice that you were being pressed by a 7-11. Your fastest lap was lap number 3 at 126 plus.
Well, I wasn't worried about the speed. It's rough out there. I went as fast as I had to go to stay ahead, and I knew Steve was there, and I took everything I had to get away from him.
Where'd you find him?
Well, I knew he was there all the time. I saw him on the start, and I knew where he was, and I saw him when he cut to the inside.
Is the water taking its toll on that back chute?
It's very rough back there. It's as bad as it's ever been here. It really puts a lot of demand on the driver and the equipment.
Okay. Well, 7-11 had their problems, and Don Poyer's over at that camp.
Gearbox, huh?
Yeah, it looks like the wheel backed off the gearbox in one of the gears. Just same thing that happened to Budweiser back in Evansville. I think we've encountered the very same problem. In fact, it was incredible. The boat quit going. I looked down, the engine's still putting out 100%. I'm going, but I'm not going anywhere.
You have another gearbox in the truck, I assume.
Yeah, we do. Not the gear ratio that I'd like, but you know, the hair presents a problem. Depending on the draw next heat, we have to win to even get a maybe into the final heat. So it's going to be it's third and long.
One thing we did see, though, you were pulling on the Budweiser.
It's finally putting out some power, and the boat is running stably. I was just starting to trim the boat and picking up about 5 or so miles an hour per straightaway. It was running pretty good.
Well, it looks like there's been some damage to the Budweiser as well.
It appears that we lost some fiberglass skin off the left sponson.
Cosmetic mainly?
Well, it's on the outboard side of the left sponson, so it really doesn't take the abuse or the thrust. So we'll put some kind of a patch over it right now, and we should be in pretty good shape.
So while the 7-11 and Budweiser get patched up, we'll be back with 1B in a minute. Welcome back to Seattle. This is Phil Davies, one of our cameramen who gives you those tremendous tight shots of the boats coming down the straightaway. And some of the better than 300,000 people on board. This is the Kenny Toyota ready to go out, or the Kenny Unlimited they call it. This the Miller American, which is nipping at the heels of the Miss Budweiser for the national point lead. Chip Hanauer aboard, and out he heads onto the Seattle 2-mile course. Let's take a look at the drivers for Heat 1B. There are 5 of them. And here are the drivers. George Johnson out of Seattle in the Oh Boy Oberto. Milna Irvin out of Coral Gables, Florida, driving the Frank Kenny Unlimited. Mike Hansen, also a driver from the state of Washington in the AA Auto Supply. And Tom Deeth in his last race. He'll retire after today in the Squire Shop. Finally, Chip Hanauer and the Miller American, the turbine-powered boat. The 5 boats head down the main straightaway, and here we go with the start of Heat 1B. Right on the button was the Squire Shop and Tom Deeth, who has been known for his starts, especially this year. But on his inside hip, there he is, the Miller American and Chip Hanauer, already with good positioning as they go into the south turn. The Miller American holding on to lane number 1 down on that south, choppy south turn. And now they go along, as you see the perspective shot, along the log boom, where many of those yachts have a front row seat to see the boats come by into that north turn. Look at the Miller American. It handles so beautifully. This boat built by Jim Lucero, an absolutely gorgeous boat. And this is Bob Style, the owner of the Squire Shop, which is currently in second place. Coming down to complete lap number 1, the Miller American at 124.8 miles per hour. And in second place is Tom Deeth, as I said, in his last race, he's in second. Edward Muncie, this is the late Bill Muncie's son, who is shooting this boat right here, the Miller American. He's a part of the team, which is owned by Fran Muncie, the late Bill Muncie's wife. Chip Hanauer, again out of Seattle, who began his racing career in the K-boats on Lake Sammamish, which is about a stone's throw away from Lake Washington. He is in front of his hometown crowd. Mike Hansen, same for him, aboard the AA Auto Supply. And again, to the back chute. This is where it is so tricky because you have rollers coming off of these boats and they run parallel with the course of the boats, which means the boats can easily get out of attitude and mess up the air, which is flowing normally under the boats very comfortably, but it can get very, very rough and tricky and downright dangerous. The Miller American, Chip Hanauer. Second place, the Squire Shop and Tom Deeth out of Fairhaven, Michigan. The U-2, a great boat. It used to be the Atlas Van Lines. Chip Hanauer drove that boat. back in 1982 when they won the Gold Cup. The Miller American coming down, probably be the last year for this boat. They have a new one that is already waiting down in camp, which they will use next year. It'll have the new red and white colors of the Miller American for 1987. Back to Tom DeEath, who got a second place over in Tri-Cities a week ago. He got a second, as a matter of fact, back in Evansville. A tremendous race with a Budweiser and Jim Kropfeld. DeEath led for 4 laps before the Budweiser finally overtook him. This boat, the Miller American, the theory behind this one, keep it light, let it fly over the turbulent waters rather than trying to build huge sponsons and simply beat its way through the rough water. As you see, again, the Squire shop flying way up the right spots and getting up into the air as we got one of our cameras right in the cockpit with Tom DeEath. Miller American speed now 126 miles per hour after lap number 3. Michael Hansen aboard the AA Auto Supply. This was the U40 a couple of years ago. Scotty Pierce drove it, and it has been around the circuit for quite some time. Back to the Miller American in a close national points race with the Budweiser. Just a little over 500 points behind. And now here again, he is Tom DeEath in second place. He hopes to come out of this maybe with a win as he ends his career here in Seattle. He says he'll go back to maybe the 2.5 liters and just have fun in the smaller boats, maybe some auto racing, but no more of the Unlimiteds. Chip Hanauer, of course, what can you say about this man? He won his 4th consecutive Gold Cup on this very course last year in Seattle, won his 5th this year in Detroit in the second race of 1986. Again, back to the Squires. He goes past the Oboy Oberto again. George Johnson having a tough time with the Oberto, had done his best, and the crew has done its best of trying to get it to perform a little bit better for its sponsor, Art Oberto. Miller American still running. We have 3 boats running so far. The Frank Kenny Toyota, Frank Kenny Unlimited went dead in the water. The Oboy Oberto, we understand, has been black flagged now because it was not maintaining a plane. So in second place is this boat, the Squires shop, with Tom DeEath. And in third place is Michael Hansen, doing a great job. This is only his second race in the Unlimiteds, his first being in Tri-Cities 1 week ago. Jumped into the cockpit his first time and ran better than 110 miles per hour on a qualifying lap. So he has a bright future in the Unlimiteds as long as he can find that ride, and it's never that easy. The Miller American down the straightaway for the last time. 400 points in the winner of Heat 1B. Second place to the big red boat, the Squire shop, and Tom DeEath. 300 points to the Squire. So here it is, 3 boats finishing, 2. No luck for the Oboy Oberto and the Frank Kenny Unlimited. Let's go down to the Miller camp and the Squire camp.
Chip, looks like it's kind of a Sunday ride out there, that first heat.
Well, yeah, I would hope that the final will be like that, but both you and I know that it's not going to be that easy.
Water conditions, any improved?
Finest I've seen in Seattle. This is a rough place because I think we have 5,000 some pleasure boats out there, and they're all moving around, and it's calm for Seattle.
Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Now, what's the water like? We're always talking about it in Seattle. Chip thinks it's the best he's seen it in years. What about you?
Well, he's probably right because he's raced here more than I have, but it's pretty good. It's going to get worse though as the day goes on.
Okay, is boat running as you want it to
now?
Yeah,
Game plan right now is still on target, so we're looking forward to getting the setup in there and going for it in the final heat. That's where the money is.
Down at the Budweiser camp, they're putting the finishing touches on the repair of the left spots, and looks like they'll be ready to go for the second go-around. 7-Eleven likewise working on the area around the gearbox, so they should be ready as well. And now it's time for the drawing for Heat 2A and 2B. We'll have that for you in a minute. We've just gotten word that the Miller American set a heat record of 123.2 on that earlier heat. Back in a minute. Back in Seattle, some bad news from the pits. The Holstead Miss Madison has withdrawn.
We worked all night Friday night. We took 2 engines that we had lost here. One we'd lost here and one we'd lost in Pasco. Took them over to Jerry Kenny's shop, and I'd like to thank him for that. It was a very nice shop. We worked till about 1:30 trying to get them tuned. We found that they were both destroyed too bad to resurrect. We was trying to take 2 and make 1, and we couldn't do that, so we came here with 1 player. We came out with 4, lost 2 in Pasco and 2 here. So it's bad luck and terrible thing, but we done the best we could.
Well, we hope to see him soon. Meanwhile, there's Snoopy down in the cockpit with Todd Yarling. That was given to him by a young man named J.R. Parr, who just had brain cancer surgery. So a good luck piece for Todd Yarling. Here's the 7-Eleven driver, Steve Reynolds, getting buttoned in. And Todd Yarling, along with Snoopy, heads out onto the course. The Miller American with 400 points. And, of course, out to get as many points as possible is the 7-Eleven. They need them to get into the final after no points in 1A. The rundown for 2A, Miller American, etc. on down the line. Out of the north turn, here come the boats. The Mr. Pringles in the near foreground, and now here comes the start as we have 5 boats coming down for the beginning of Heat 2A. Everybody's right on the button. Here they come, right down Broadway. Into the south turn. On the inside, the Miller American, the Kenny Unlimited on lane number 2 with Milner Irvin, a great driver, and he can certainly stay up with the hot boats if he's got the power behind him. On the way outside is the Mr. Pringles. You saw Scotty Pierce go by, but holding on, hugging the buoys is Miller American. This is Linda Reynolds, the wife of Steve Reynolds in the 7-Eleven, and where is it? It's got to get at least 300 points, really 400, to ensure itself a spot into the final. Miller American in first place. A cakewalk for the Miller, it looks like right now. A good lead for Chip Hanauer as he goes into the north turn. The water's settling down somewhat, even though there's a lot of air under that boat. There's the perspective. Second place is the Kenny Unlimited. And in lane number 2, it looks like out in third place is the 7-Eleven, along with the Mr. Pringles on the outside. Good race for third and fourth, but the 7-Eleven, as Linda Reynolds watches on, her husband Steve Reynolds in that boat has got to get into at least second place and try to get 300 points to make the final. Back to the Miller American in first place, and Chip Hanauer racing in front of many of his hometown fans, many relatives. Second place, Milner Irvin and the Frank Kenny Unlimited. That was the Budweiser last year, and for many years in the past, it is now being powered by an Allison turbocharged engine rather than those big Griffin engines. In second place currently is the Kenny Unlimited. This is the Kenny now. Look, coming around the outside. There's the 7-Eleven knocking on the door as he goes down the back chute. Still in third place, but Milner Irvin putting on a good battle. In first place, the Miller American. Still with 400 points. Could get another 400 here and have 800 for the day. Trying to keep pace with the Budweiser in the national points race. A great battle for second and third. 7-Eleven still on the outside. Here's Reynolds leaving room now for Milner Irvin to stay in lane number 1. Look at the chop. You got 4-foot rollers in there. 7-Eleven on the outside. Taking second place away from the Frank Kenny Unlimited is the 7-Eleven. Here they come down the main straightaway. Speeds for the Miller American, 119, 119, 120, 3 miles per hour in the last 3 laps. So the Miller American not slowing down whatsoever and holding on to first place. With the 7-Eleven moving into second place, hoping that will be enough points to somehow get into the final run for the money at the end of the day. They have tried a number of things to the engines of this 7-Eleven boat, trying to get more power. He has been racing with about 85% of the total power that it should be putting out, and they are getting ever so close to finally getting the boat dialed in. Here's the Cellular One with 225 points, hoping to get another 225 possibly. We'll wait and see. But the Miller American cruising along. Again, a beautiful shot with a 45-1 lens. That's a lot of glass, and we're zooming in on these boats as they come around the north turn. The 7-Eleven with the enclosed canopy. And back to Milner Irvin in the Frank Kenny Unlimited. The Miller American, you see the Lake Washington floating bridge in the background. That is a familiar sight for hydroplane fans around the country. They've been racing these boats here for over 35 years. In fact, this is the town where the 3-point hydroplane configuration was created by Ted Jones, Stan Sayers and company back in the late 40s. The 7-Eleven again with that enclosed cockpit, which is out of an F-16 fighter. And there's the third place boat, Milner Irvin and the Frank Kenny Unlimited. Chip Hanauer coming around one more time. His father, Stan Hanauer, down in the pits watching his son race. The two of them started here in this town back when he was only 12 years old. He was on a paper route, raising enough money to buy his first hydroplane, a little K-class boat. And now look at him, one of the top drivers in the world. And this man, Steve Reynolds, another outstanding driver. You give him the right tools and he'll do a lot of things for you out on that course. He hugs the buoys as well as anybody, much like Bill Muncy did when he was driving. Linda Reynolds hoping that her husband, Steve, can somehow pull out some magic to get enough points to make it into that final. Again, Chip Hanauer, let's face it, he's had an easy day. The machinery has not been pushed at all. Steve Reynolds seems happy to go for the 300 points in second place, hoping that's enough to get into that final. And for the final time around the north turn in Heat 2A is the Miller American. Hanauer having an easy time of it. it as he comes down the straightaway for the last time. An average speed of 120 miles per hour, a little bit more than that. Another 400 points for the Miller American, 800 for the day. And looking at the numbers, Miller American, a perfect afternoon. The 7-Eleven, we don't know if that'll be enough points or not. Likewise for the Frank Kenny. Let's go down to the 7-Eleven camp.
It's too early to tell until run, till 2B, but you might just be in the final.
Well, we went out to, yeah, I'm fine, Doc, thanks. We went out to run as hard as we could run. I mean, I didn't leave anything left. We're still short a few miles per hour, but you still, if it's enough to get us into the final heat, then we accomplished what we wanted to do, which was come here and race.
Okay, Don?
Chipper, you've had a great day. You haven't had to work hard on the machinery at all so far.
Well, yeah, we've been lucky in the draws as far as being able to run easy, but national points-wise, that hurts us because if we stand any chance at all of narrowing that gap on Jim Cropfield, we need to race him. If we win our heats and he wins his, it's a push.
Well, plus, you really haven't had to go that hard to know what it's going to be like in this water, I suppose.
Well, I can just assume that it's going to be rough and that the guys are going to make me go harder. That's the safe assumption.
Looking ahead, and we know that the Budweiser will be in here, are you going to try to get them on your outside hip like normal? We've seen that so many times.
Yeah, I don't know that that's the way to go here. I think the way the race course is laid out and the roughness here, I don't know that's the way to go.
Okay. We'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, hang on.
And I would love to have a suntan concession stand out on the beach. I'd be a rich man. Back in a minute. Back to Seattle, Tom Deeth of the Squire Shop wears two different scarves on his hands. Let's get an explanation from him. The red scarf on your hand, is that for good luck?
No, the red's for experience, the blue is for luck.
All right, well, you got 300 points, just a matter of finishing. You should be in good shape for the final.
Well, we're going to do the best we can to get the Deeth Squire Shop in the final, and then we're going to go for the money.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you.
Go for the money. That's what the Squire Shop wants to do. And let's take a look at the rundown now for Heat 2B, our final preliminary. The Bud, the Squire Shop, and three other boats that need points. Here we go with the start. The Squire Shop and Tom Deeth right on the button as he goes down the main straightaway in first place. Where's the Budweiser? Just went by on the inside. Looks like we have only three boats running right now. The Oboy Alberto on the far left. The inside on the far right is the Budweiser and the Squire on the inside. Jim Cropfield out of Cincinnati, Ohio, rocking and rolling into that south turn. There goes the Squire Shop. Oboy Alberto and George Johnson in third place. Again, the perspective giving you the lead. Better than a rooster tail lead already for the Budweiser. Cropfield is moving down the back straightaway. We've got to get a time on him. He is really hauling. Oh, we have one of the boats dead in the water, Mike Hansen, and the AA Auto Supply as the Budweiser goes around the north turn. Look at the ride of this boat. You can see the wings shaking in the back as it comes around, rumbling around and heading down the main straightaway. Oh, again, getting up on the nose a little bit is Cropfield and the Bud. Let's get a time. It's got to be around 125. Let's see as he comes past the finish line. 126.3 miles per hour. Almost another record for Cropfield. He and Hanauer just keep going back and forth, laying down records all over the country for that matter. George Johnson, the Oboy Alberto, laboring along, hoping to get some more points and possibly get into the final. They were black flagged earlier for not maintaining a plane in an earlier heat. But again, the Budweiser and Jim Cropfield with 400 points already. He has not met the Miller American yet today. And any time that they meet head-on, it's going to have a large bearing on the national points race because they are separated by only 531 points at this stage. Here's the Oboy Alberto again, George Johnson, who drove the Executive telephone boat 2 years ago, and then Scotty Pierce drove it last year. He is driving it this year, but under the Mr. Pringles name. The Budweiser and that F-16 fighter canopy over Cropfield, who is also breathing off an air system of compressed air, as well as a cool suit, a cool liquid being pumped around him through his racing jacket to keep him cool inside there. That's one of the biggest problems with an enclosed cockpit is trying to stay cool. Bernie Little, one of the innovators in the enclosed cockpit system, going for safety and then later going for speed. Last year they really dedicated the Budweiser team to safety for their driver Jim Cropfield, and now they're working on performance. And they're doing ever so well as they are the national point leaders. Tommy Deeth, as you saw, around the south turn, and again the Oboy Alberto really laboring now, but trying to hold on and somehow get 225 points. Only three boats running, so if he can finish, he'll get at least 225. The checkered flag waiting for the Budweiser with an average speed of better than 117 miles per hour. That's about the same speeds he was going at in Heat 1A. Jim Kropfeld, 400 points, a perfect 800-point day, and now we'll meet the Miller American in the final. Likewise for this boat, Tom DeEath and the Squire Shop. And third place, oh my, they've lost a turbo, it looks like, and look at the smoke pouring out of the Oboy Alberto. Boy, they are cooking up some kind of smoked sausage today. Oh, my goodness sakes. I think he'll finish. I'm not sure if anyone will see it, though. Here are the results. The Budweiser on a roll. Likewise for the Squire Shop, the Oboy Alberto did indeed get its points. No such luck for the AA Auto Parts. Down to the Budweiser camp.
Jimmy, you look kind of tired after that last heat victory. What's happening?
Well, the water's very rough out there. We made some changes in the Budweiser and got her up where I think it's really raceable now, so I just took it easy that time, and the slower I go, the harder I ride.
It shaped up to be a fast heat, but last week was too, and then you couldn't get it started. I don't think you want any repeats of that.
No, I want to go out and race against Chip and all the other guys. That's why I'm here, and I haven't raced Chips since Evansville, and that's a long time.
And the Budweiser crew has a little repair work to do again on that left sponson. Another hole in there, but they'll have time to get ready for the final.
Look, even the paint's
We will return to Seattle and the Emerald Cup in just a moment.
This is the High Performance Corner, a closer look at the fastest race boats in the world.
This week we're breaking away from the hydroplanes for our High Performance Corner. You talk about high performance, you can't beat the Blue Angels. A major part of the Seattle celebration every year. And words simply can't describe the beauty and precision of this team. Well, let's watch. Thanks to the Blue Angels with another fantastic show. And here's a rundown of the final for today. Again, that big meeting between the Miller American and the Budweiser, along with the Squire Shop, Mr. Pringle's 7-Eleven, and the Frank Kenny Unlimited. All this and more. Welcome back to Seattle. It's almost time to go racing again. Something going on down at the Cellular One camp. Let's take a look. God, I know all the boats like to cover up their propellers, kind of a mind game they play, but what's this?
You know, Don, everybody's got the high technology speed seekers. We really don't have them kind of speed seekers, so we're just out here trying to have a lot of fun, and this is our own little answer to this is our favorite propeller, so we're dressing her up real good.
Now, is this about a C or a D cup? It's a big prop.
Yeah, it's a big one there. I've never seen one quite that big before.
Prop or bra?
Both.
And this is the Continental Airlines entry to the milk carton race they have every year in Seattle. Something, huh? Time for our Mercury update.
23 drivers from 7 nations, including Americans Chris Busch, Buck Thornton, and Don Johnston, gathered in Bristol, England to compete in the second round of the Fonda World Series, the Bristol Grand Prix. An estimated 250,000 people lined the Bristol docks and filled the grandstands to witness a spectacular weekend of racing on the challenging, twisting course. In the interest of safety, due to the large number of competitors, the drivers were split into 2 groups. The fastest 12 from these groups would qualify for the finals. The non-qualifiers later competed for the remaining 2 places in the 14-boat final. Leading competitors in Group A were Chris Bush and former world champion Michael Werner. This race was stopped after 2 laps when Italian Guido Capellini barrel rolled at a dangerous point on the course. On the restart, Bush leaped to a commanding lead, which he held until Peter Lindenberg flipped his boat, and the race was stopped 2/3 of the way through. Qualifiers for the finals for this group were Chris Bush, Will Taylor, Herman Gruber, Horst Clemens, and Günter Schreier. World champion John Hill stayed firmly in the lead of the Group B qualifying heat, defying all attempts by Jonathan Jones to displace him. Behind Jones was Buck Thornton and Morten Bjerkens on his tail. Qualifying for the finals in Group B were John Hill, Jonathan Jones, Americans Buck Thornton and Don Johnston, Tony Williams, and Kiko Vidoli. British drivers Mark Wilson and Bill Ormston filled the remaining 2 spots in the finals. Favorites in the finals were Chris Bush, Jonathan Jones, and John Hill, who had been world champion for the past 2 years. True to form, Hill immediately took the lead, only to have it snatched away from him by Bush in lap 3. Jones then took over second place in the following lap. A dislodged jack plug almost cost Bush the lead, but Jones, also experiencing mechanical problems, as his steering column detached from the hull, just could not pass Bush. Bush and a Mercury-powered Burgess flashed across the finish line to take the checkered flag 16 seconds ahead of last year's winner, Jonathan Jones, followed by Hill, Taylor, and Wilson. With this win only his second trip to the challenging Bristol Grand Prix, Chris Bush has followed in the footsteps of the legendary Billy Siebold, winning all major trophies in the race. Averaging 88 miles an hour around the dangerous twisting course, the 26-year-old from St. Paul, Minnesota, took home the coveted Duke of York's trophy, the City of Hanover Cup, and the Sir Henry Seagrave Salver, clocking the fastest lap in the final at a speed of 91 miles an hour. From Bristol, England, this is Steve Michael reporting.
And another part of racing in the Northwest is eating, like here in the Gargoyle Sunglasses Hospitality Tent. We have the final heat in Seattle coming up after this. With the grand old lady watching down upon us, Mount Rainier, the final is here. And let's listen to some of the drivers. Chip, we often talk about how you feel like you've got the best machinery out there, or other than maybe 1 or 2 boats or something. Is that what you're thinking about now? You've got the Budweiser out there that may have equal equipment, you don't know, but that's the one you got to be concerned with most?
We have to assume that they do. We have to go at them just like they can run 10 miles an hour faster than we can. The best place to be on this race course is another story. I think I have to see maybe what his intentions are before I know exactly what I want to do.
Well, look out for the patrol boats out in the infield, okay?
Yeah, we went to that movie once before, and I don't think you'll see a repeat of that, I hope.
Jim, just talking with Chip, it sounds like it's going to get messy out in the infield getting a lane. What do you think?
I think it's really going to be messy. I know that Tommy and Chip and I will all be fighting for the inside, and of course I'm sure the other 3 guys will too, so it's going to make the water really rough.
Okay, well, good luck and be careful.
Thank you.
Talking with Chip and with Kropfeld, they're both awfully busy and preoccupied with those 2. I would imagine that's good for you. Open things up maybe, that they're thinking about each other too much?
Well, I don't think either one of them are foolish enough to take anybody out here for granted. This is the final heat. In that final heat, anybody that's been sandbagging all day is going to pull out all the stops. There's no time to be timid.
Have you been sandbagging at all?
I got to find somebody's face to get into. I'll see you guys on a race course.
Okay. Steve Reynolds heading out to work. Chip Hanauer ready to go to work. And his date with these 2 boats and 3 others as the Budweiser, with its 530-point lead, heads for the course. The drivers, Milner Irvin and the Frank Kenny Unlimited. Very good driver, very experienced. Steve Reynolds, as he said, he's looking for somebody's face to get into. We'll see. Scotty Pierce, he's had a good day in the Mr. Pringles. He's in the final. Tom DeEath, in his last race ever, he retires after this final. Chip Hanauer cutting away at that national point lead of the Budweiser. And Jim Kropfeld aboard the Miss Budweiser. The Miller and the Budweiser already beginning their dance as they come onto the back straightaway, and they're going right into the trail, one of the rooster tails of a boat. It's the Budweiser on the right, and it looks like it's slowing down. Yes, the Budweiser's slowing down. The Miller American is still going. The Bud is dead in the back straightaway. The AA Auto Supply dead in the water, shutting down as the first alternate. Without the Budweiser, we have a 5-boat field for the final. The Budweiser Emerald Cup. The final, the run for the money is underway. Good start as you hear the gun. The Mr. Pringles on the outside with Scotty Pierce going down the main chute, heading into the south turn. The Squire shot on the inside. Here comes the Miller American now in lane number 2. Look at Chip Hanauer run away from the field into the south turn. On the outside, as you saw, there's the Budweiser running again. You saw the Pringles going around the outside. The 7-Eleven, we understand, was washed down coming down the main straightaway. We'll see if there's any kind of ruling as to whether or not the 7-Eleven was cut off. But in the meantime, the Budweiser way back. Here's the race for second and third. It's the Squire shop on the inside, Mr. Pringles and Scotty Pierce on the outside. Again, though, the Miller American jumping out in front of the pack. No meeting with the Budweiser. We thought they would go deck to deck last week in Tri-Cities, but the Budweiser was unable to start. And now the Budweiser is washed down as everybody was trying to get a lane to come down for the start of the final here in Seattle. Second place is the Squire shop. Hanauer running all alone in that south turn here on the choppy waters of Lake Washington. The 7-Eleven still running after getting washed down. You see a couple of the braces around the pipe a little loose in the back of the turbine of the 7-Eleven, probably a result of running into that rooster tail of being cut off. We understand he was indeed cut off by this boat, the Mr. Pringles, with Scotty Pierce aboard, and the boat has been disqualified. So that moves the 7-Eleven into third place behind the Squire shop, and of course this man, the man who is racing in his own backyard, Chip Hanauer and the Miller American. Coming down the main straightaway, let's check some of the speeds on the Miller American. Right around 118, 119, 120 miles per hour. So he's moving right along despite the choppy waters here on Lake Washington. Tommy Deeth, his last ride, and wants to get through it and go on to auto racing and maybe a little 2.5 liter, smaller, limited boat racing. We will have to wait and see. Again, the 7-Eleven. Steve Reynolds with a mask on. You see the braces, the bands in the back of that pipe rattling around. Again, probably a result of getting washed down earlier in the race. Miller American, Chip Hanauer, looking for his 4th victory in 1986 and hopes to cut away, and if you'll pardon the pun, chip away at that lead of the Budweiser in the national point standings. With a victory here, if the Budweiser is unable to finish, when it looks like that will be the case, Chip will be down only 130 points to the Budweiser camp. 7-Eleven running a little looser now. That's what they've wanted to do with this boat. Get the sponsons off the water a little more and let the turbine engine do what it's supposed to do. Hopefully get it up to 100% power rather than about 85%, which is what they've had to live with throughout the 1986 season. Hanauer in first. Second place, Tom DeEath of Fairhaven, Michigan. The Squire shop owned by Bob Stile out of Seattle. And the Miller American coming down the main straightaway, the last time the winner of the Budweiser Emerald Cup in Seattle. Johnny Walters, the crew chief on the right, Mike Campbell, a teammate, and they have picked up victory number 4 in 1986. Chip Hanauer, the Miller American. Looking at the numbers officially, the Miller American with a perfect day, 1,200 points, and now down only 130 to the Budweiser. And you see in the bottom of the screen, the Mr. Pringles disqualified for moving in on the 7-Eleven and the rest of the pack at the start of the race. Let's go down to the winner's circle, the Miller American team. What happened up in the north turn? All of a sudden, the 7-Eleven and the Budweiser way back.
Yeah, Jim and I were fighting for the inside lane, and all of a sudden we got onto the race course, but they were both going by, and neither one of us had a place to go, and he got it worse than I did.
Congratulations, 22.
22. They all feel good.
A final comment from Seattle. The national points race ever so close. Only 130 points between the first place Budweiser, second place Miller American.
And that's not very much because you get 169 points for a 4th place finish. We have 4 more races to go, so it's going to be close. I think the disappointing thing would be that the Miss Budweiser turbine with Jim Kropfeld and the Miller American turbine with Chip Hanauer, between them they've won all the races, right, and we haven't had a head-to-head confrontation that we've been looking for 2 straight weeks, but it's going to come.
From here, they go to Syracuse, then Philadelphia, San Diego, and Las Vegas. So, as you said, only 4 races remaining. And from Seattle, I'm Don Poyer for Jim Hendrick. Thanks for joining us. See you again soon. Air transportation has been provided by Continental Airlines, the official carriers of the Unlimited Racing Commission. Shoes and sports apparel provided by Avia, makers of high-performance footwear for both men and women.
This has been the Budweiser Emerald Cup. Brought to you by ANCO, the best wiper blade you can buy. Tests prove it.